Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Talking Horses. Anthony Stabile and Andy Serling as we kick off another week here at the Big A after a long Easter break with no racing on Sunday and a four-day racing week. Jose Lezcano obviously off his mounts. He hurt his hand in that incident on Saturday. Apparently a broken bone in his hand, had it operated on. Don't know how long he'll be out.
Yeah, his agent Jason Bidas. I actually spoke to Jose on Tuesday. Said he's feeling okay. Give us a little bit of a timeline later on this week, over the weekend. They'll see just how long he's out. Speedy recovery, of course, to Jose. Manny Franco was involved in that spill as well. He got up, rode the rest of the card. He's fine.
Head on over to Naira Bets. If you're not a member of Naira Bets, no better time than the present. Use the promo code BONUS200 and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. We also have the carryover today. Starts in race number 3, $66,705 and a very tricky sequence, obviously, on Wood Memorial Day. Carryover 66,000 plus, closer to 67 actually. Pretty healthy one-day carryover. We also have the Dinner and Derby with Maggie, Acacia, and Anthony at King Umberto's on the Wednesday before the Derby. Information available. Also, finally, last but not least, 1 to 5:30, covering all the action today on America's Day at the Races. America's Day at the Races. No Oaklawn today, so just the Aqueduct races. An interesting card. We'll get work on it. And I guess the horse to start it out, the current 8 to 5 favorite, is Twice Smitten, a horse that we both have second. Any thoughts?
I tried this horse last time against Greatest Love, who had won her prior start and came back to win again this day against Twice Smitten, who was... She was my pick this day, just trying to ride the Rob Atras train at the time, and she didn't run particularly well coming in off the long break from Finger Lakes, rather. She had been off a couple of long breaks, and she just didn't fire. Now she's running again, second start of the form cycle. I guess she makes some sense in a race where, you know, these fillies are all down at the bottom for a reason. It's one of these weird races, Andy, where you look, the two's eligible for a 3 life. Left leaning Lucy the 3. This horse, they just got out of the 3 life condition. Same for Bells on Her Toes and Valorant. The only 2 fillies or mares in the race who have multiple wins are Gypsy Janie, open wins, I should say, are Gypsy Janie, and we don't believe her. I have them 1-3 for a reason, and that's because they have the multiple wins in a race full of horses that just have the conditioned wins.
Let's take a look at Gypsy Janie's win 2 races back, and you can talk about her. I don't want her off a year layoff in this race, in a poor race, and a horse that was racing at the bottom level at Penn National.
Yeah,
if you disagree.
She was at the bottom everywhere she was, but she has some success on the circuit. It was a long, long time ago. But she's one of the 2 fillies in the race that has multiple wins in a race full of horses that won conditioned races. And I know it's the Wayback Machine, and I know lately she's been running at the bottom, but even her recent races at the bottom.
She hasn't even run lately. She hasn't run a year.
Her most recent races, the races 8, 9, 10 months ago, save that last race, those races 2 and 3 back, if she can find those races, and maybe she can't. But you know what? I think they're all going to be similar prices. Her, Twice Smitten, Valorant.
Well, she and Twice Smitten will be the 2 favorites as they are now, and all likely on the shortest prices. Okay, I just didn't like Gypsy Janie because out of town form, not here, hasn't run well really for me in a while. I thought Valorant was an interesting alternative in here because unlike so many of these, she's dropping significantly. Now, obviously, when she ran against better horses for Rob Atras, she had a big win 3 back, and that was earlier in the year, a sloppy track for sure, but she's run well on wet tracks as well, so her best races are on wet tracks. I don't think her race 2 races back against Movie Moxie and Mia Be a Star, I think that's a race that would give her a real chance to win. She was bad last time, no doubt about it. Now, she was towards the inside, and you were better off being off the rail, so maybe she was bogged down a little bit in the inside, though she did run poorly there. Drops down to a bottom level, and I just thought she'd be a decent price in a race where I really didn't like anybody, and I think with the connections with Samuel riding, people will ignore this horse, and I have no problem with them riding the horse, and I thought she was a little interesting as an alternative where I thought the favorites were a bit vulnerable. Race number 2, one of a few 1.8 races I know we're running this week.
We ran 3, was it Friday? We run a lot more than 9 furlong races.
Take a look at She Caught My Eye, who we both have second here off a big win last time. You're trying to beat her with Vodkatini.
Yeah, She Caught My Eye makes a bunch of sense in here. her mile race, her two of her races at a mile are very good. That one race on the Sloppy Seals track against the aforementioned Valoran, she didn't run particularly well, but she's run well enough at the mile where, and I don't know what happened here. They claimed her off Linda, and now Linda has her back.
For different owners.
For different owners. So I'm assuming this was everything's cricket.
Well, obviously it was a claim, and now it's a repurchase. So the horse hasn't run in almost 3 months.
Maybe it was a
takes
transfer.
At least a month. So we'll see what happens. I forgot to look up who claimed this horse, though I do notice that as well.
Well, they could have claimed the horse and just given the horse to Linda. That could have happened too.
Once again, I didn't look up who claimed the horse,
Yeah.
and you obviously didn't either.
Yeah.
So talk about Vodkatini.
Yeah, I just took one shot against, she caught my eye here. I thought she caught my eye was going to be tough. Vacatini. Mike Gorham horses have run okay after a little bit of a drought here. She has some experience going 2 turns. Some of it's on the turf. She had the one race going 2 turns at Laurel back in December. It was pretty good. She'll be forward. I'm sure Kendrick will be aggressive with her. I thought the race last time against Cupid's Girl was going to be useful. She comes back pretty quick, 2 weeks, and I thought she was a viable alternative to a horse. David has Desert Dalliance, the morning line favorite. And I guess off the fig last time, first time in for the tag last time.
She
and
ran
now
against
protected
better horses
again. She's
last
ran against better horses. I don't know. I thought she
Significantly
caught my eye would be the favorite, but I thought this filly was a viable alternative to the other two.
See what happens with those, but David's usually right about his lines, as we know. I just took Duck Fat as the alternative. She, too, has been running against some better horses in her races. Obviously, the mile and eighth, really a bit of a question mark for every single horse in this race. And Duck Fat's a horse, doesn't have much speed, so that worries me a little bit. We'll see. I just thought maybe a little bit interesting dropping down after facing better horses in a race where it's not going to take a Herculean effort, and I'd rather take a bit of a price with a horse than go to the logicals, though I don't have a problem with the 4 and 5 as well. Race number 3, there's a heavy favorite in Colloquy, and we'll look at Colloquy's race 2 back. And last time out did not run well in that race, just better horses last time out, but it does bother me a little bit that she didn't run that well off the claim. We'll take a look at Colloquy's win 2 races back if we can. And it does bother me a little bit that she comes out of that race, a race where she ran well. She's a relatively short price. She didn't run terribly, but she was sort of a no-show in here. And then Rob drops her down for a quarter, and she's going to be a humongous favorite here in a horse probably in this sequence that's getting leaned on as much as any horse in the sequence. I don't want to pick her on top, but she's the horse to beat.
He's supposed to, right? I mean,
yeah, he's supposed to be. He's the shortest price. I believe that he's likely to be the shortest price in the sequence, so therefore he's probably the horse that the most people will lean on who are leaning on one horse in the sequence.
I mean, he probably ran against better horses last time. I don't disagree. He didn't do a bunch of running last time, but I think the race 2 back and the race probably 3 back. Even though those horses out of the race 3 back, behind Complete Agenda, really the horses right behind them, second, they haven't done much running.
Well, Afjan actually came back here and won the other day, so that's not correct. Yeah. He actually ran well in there. He was wide, the pace collapsed, he wanted to be on the rail. So actually that was a solid effort for him. It's his last effort that bothers me, and the drop down by Rob. And Rob's been going well. He waited that 1 week where he did so well. He's a little delusional. He seems to think the Nets are going to beat the Sixers, much as I'd love to agree with him. But I think Midnight Worker is a viable alternative in here. For some reason, Midnight Worker took absolutely no money last time, despite having run a better race than the horse that won the race, who was 8-5. It's kind of like they just knew. Now, maybe they know that it's the end. It's sort of the end of the line for Midnight Worker, and he won't run well again today. But I thought his effort 2 races back was a very good effort, an effort that could win this race and beat Colloquy. Now, it does bother me a little bit that his 2 wet track races in his last 4 starts stick out like sore thumbs. But he does have that good race behind Breadman, where he got the 73 buyer back on a dry track. So I don't want to attribute it all to a wet track. And he ran well, wide chasing. The pace collapsed 2 races back. He really ran a winning race 2 back. Now, last race was a complete debacle. He was out in the middle of the racetrack. The rail was okay, but the track was mostly fair. He was just never in the race, and he was bet like he was never going to be in the race. And I'm hoping as the only real alternative on paper to the favorite that maybe I can take him on top of Colloquy, who I just don't completely face. I just don't trust him to show up, and he's not going to be 6-5. I think he's going to be closer to 3-5.
The race last time was strange too, because I felt like there were like 3 or 4 horses that could have contended for the lead last time, and Win for Gold just found himself loose on the lead. And maybe that had to do with the fact that the rail was good and Win for Gold was along the inside, and he was able to get loose on the lead. But all the other speeds didn't seem to show up. Z-Bear came running late. Midnight Worker got off a touch slow and then wound up behind horses. He doesn't really like to be behind horses. I don't know. But I do agree with you. He's the only alternative to Colloquy. I fell for the drop.
Unless Skylander can get back to that one good win, but he has been disappointing. Though a 1 1/8 against Curbstone and those horses last time was not exactly a great spot, and he has had a bit of a freshening for Charlie Baker, so he'd be my C in this race. Race number 4, as we'll kick off the late pick 5 in race number 4. What did you do here?
I went to Shasta. You know, Andy, I didn't really like the chalks in here. So I went to Shasta Star, and I don't like betting the horses ordinarily off the voided claim that had gone 10 months. But I thought she came back, and you want to talk about running against better. She just ran against much, much better last time, and I don't think she ran that poorly. I know the fig didn't come back good, but she was gone for 10 months off the void. She came back against a tougher field. Now, I know she could have waited for this and run for the waiver, and that bothers me a little bit. Now, it would have been another month. I don't believe there was a quarter that she could have run in.
They claimed it for 20. Why wouldn't they?
No, I understand. I understand.
She's a turf horse.
And that bothers me too, that they didn't wait to run her for the quarter and then to the turf, or just wait for the turf. Because I do agree with you. She's 2 for 2 on the turf. She's better on the grass. But she's a price, and I think there's going to, I think
A lot of prices in here.
Yeah,
So it's Triple P. It's 30 to 1 morning line.
Yeah, I don't like Triple P. I think this filly can fire a decent shot today. There's some speed in here.
There
with
is?
with Shasta and beautiful.
No.
With Quality Stones and beautiful Karen.
No, Quality Stones will be in front of her.
Yeah, she'll be in front of her, but Quality Stones will be chasing. But beautiful Karen will be chasing her.
Okay, I don't think there's any pace in here, but I think Quality Stones is a dangerous horse in here. We'll have to agree to disagree. I think she's dangerous on the front end. She ran against better last time out, and just thought she's run against some better horses and has efforts that are good enough to win. But I thought that Rudy's horse, Diva Banker, Chasin' Bryn, I wanted to show Chasin' Bryn's last race. She ran well okay last time. She's probably going to have to run a little bit better to win this race, but at least she got the job done in here and ran well. And I actually found, we'll show after the race, interesting stat for Rudy Rodriguez, second off the claim, off a win in a dirt sprint. He's got pretty strong numbers, so maybe she can run back to it. I just prefer Diva Banker, who's a very logical horse in here. She's really been running against better horses. I mean, she had no chance chasing Granny's Connection last time. She was off the rail on a day the rail was the place to be. The rail was the place to be 2 back. She was wide in that race. The winner came up the fence. I think her form has been dirtied up by trips. She's still running figures that are good enough to win. I think Diva Banker is way the one to beat, but did want to show this food for thought with Chasin' Bryn. Rudy has these good numbers, second off a claim, off a win. So I'm going to use Quality Stones, I think, to speed, but I think that Diva Banker is very much the one to beat in here. We disagree a bit on race number 4. Take a break, come back with the late pick 4.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.
Welcome back to Talking Horses. I want to thank our sponsors at Saratoga Water as well. Anthony Stabile and Andy Serling. Race number 5 on the turf for the first of 3 races today in race number 5. And I'm going to start with a horse that I picked on top, Citizen K, who I just think is much the horse to beat. Now listen, I worry about the fact that she missed the whole fall after running a huge race. If she runs this race, it is highly unlikely she will lose. It's a race that completely fell apart. The winner came from last. The winner was favored, nailed her in the last jump. She did all the running in this race. Now, it does worry me, no doubt about it. I'd like to see Manny be aggressive with her and have her on the front end in this race. I think she's very dangerous, but she is a layoff, but I took her on top. There are a lot of interesting horses in here, though.
Yep. I'm sorry. If he runs that last race, he'll win. He had a couple of tough draws at Saratoga as well, 9-hole, 11-hole. Makes you wonder what took him so long to stretch this horse out, over a year and a half on the grass. And took them a long time to get this horse to go long, but seems like he found his home without getting a win so far going along on the grass. But yeah, I worry about the layoff a little bit. I think it's a concern with all these horses. Though he won from November to April layoff, but he didn't really beat much, and it was sprinting last year when he got in the maiden ranks. So we'll see. And he also has a lot of time between his races. I don't know if that's by design or if that's just how the calendar falls, how the races fall. We'll see. He's going to be a short price too, I think, off that last race and off the layoff. So I took
3 to 1 morning line seemed like a reasonable price to me. Take a look at Liar's Poker winning his debut, and I'll let you talk about him, your top choice.
Yeah, you know, I talked to Christophe Clement about this horses. If you remember the Dam Epping Forest, she was more of a sprinter. But the few times they tried to stretch her out, the circumstances just were not ideal. Then they ran this horse long first time out, got the job done, came back pretty ambitiously in the Central Park, ran into Bat Flip, who was a multiple winner for Todd Pletcher. Kind of just got loose on the lead that day, and that was it. Kind of a little bit of a merry-go-round race. I don't know, first time Lasix comes back now, has been here for a while. It's part of the first group of horses that shipped up for Christophe. So been here for about a month and a half now. I just thought with the routine improvement from 2 to 3, taking on the older horses for the first time, obviously. I don't know, I thought this horse looked okay in the debut. Thought the horse ran okay in the Central Park.
She had an absolutely perfect trip in the race we just watched there. She did lug in a bit in the stretch and still got it done, but she couldn't have got a more dream trip. And she had a good trip last time, and while merry-go-round race or not, and I don't disagree, she went the wrong way behind it, so I wasn't thrilled with her. I've got her second, though. Christophe's numbers off the layoffs in these turf routes are not particularly great. I thought Mr. Kringle can always get a piece in the air. At least he's been running recently. He just doesn't really win. Listen, I think Starquist, first time in the turf, I always think he could be a little interesting, as bad as his last one. Noble Huntsman's another horse who ran reasonably well as a 2-year-old and could improve. So it was an interesting race, but I went to the logical Citizen K.
I thought Fatima's Blessing had to get a look too. I know the horse has not run well on the circuit, but the horse's 2 races, one of the races here at Aqueduct was no Lasix, and then he came up here in the starter 50, and then down at Tampa this winter, this horse seemed to get a little better. And I talked about this last week. Recency over some of the others. Now, he doesn't have the recency over Mr. Kringle because he was at Tampa this winter as well. But he has a lot of recency over Liar's Poker and Citizens K, and he's been running a little bit faster.
What he doesn't have is any speed whatsoever.
No, he doesn't.
So that, I thought, was a bit of a problem for him, among other things. The horse in the second race we talked about was claimed by Rudy Rodriguez for Daryl Abramowitz, so it is a private purchase since that last race. Don't know the circumstances. Thank you, David Aragona, for that information. Race number 6, there were a couple of chads, one scratch. Don't know the story why the Have to Fire at Will Sacred Rhyme came out in here. Equal protection. Talk about equal protection.
Yeah, I scratched into equal protection. We did not. I don't know. I don't know if there was much of a trip. This horse was 18 to 1 last time out.
Okay.
I just didn't love. I didn't love anybody in here.
He had a very good ground-saving trip in this race, and Tyler sort of got a little suckered to go up the rail, had to go around, but I don't think it was enough trouble to overcome the fact that a good trip. Now, it was a race that completely fell apart. The second-place finisher and came back and broke its maiden, improving his buyer figure at Keeneland 3 points the next time out. It was a first-time starter. So it does seem to be a respectable race, and it is a race that's just filled with question marks, mostly horses that haven't been on the turf. So there's really nothing wrong with him. And the main contender he has to deal with turf experience is Warren Award, who we'll look at last time. Now, a friend of mine whose opinion I really respect just thought maybe he was a horse that wasn't really ready first time out. That's why they gave him the sprint, and he'll be better stretching out. I don't have a strong opinion on that one way or the other. Thought he ran fine in this race. You know, it was a track that the rail was very good, but he also spent a majority of the race in the rail before angling out in the stretch. But the winner was the speed and wired the field. So I don't think he's impossible to win stretching out in his second start. And I think the 1 and 9 are both legitimate contenders. Nothing wrong with them.
Yeah.
Just sort of logical type horses. Not a lot of turf pedigrees to go on. And, you know, I was going to scratch into the 1 in this rare, keep the 1 up on top in here. But I ended up taking a horse. You know, I was talking to David Aragona about this horse. This is a horse that Fast Sports Guide, I've been waiting to get back on the dirt because he's had trips. He's been against the track in some very, very tough fields. The reality is, I just want to throw him in at a price here. It's a horse that, I'm going to be honest, David actually did a sell job on. So I was talking to him the other day and wasn't really thrilled with either the 1 and 9. And I was asking him about this horse because I was interested more in the dirt. It's a Cairo Prince. You know what? He could also be the speed in this race. He's got a lot of speed. Vargas, an aggressive rider, put him on the lead. I don't love him in here, but I don't want to take Equal Protection or the 9 at what are now going to be in the 2-1 to 5-2 range, both of whom could run 1-2 in here. No problems with them at all. But I thought Fast Boat to Sky has enough durability and enough turf pedigree, a Cairo Prince who moves horses up on the turf, that I'd take a shot with him to wire the field. No strong opinion. I'd use 1-8-9 in this race.
I would imagine they're going to be forward with the 3 in here. I mean, at some point they got to be forward with the 3 when Love takes over. No.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I mean, it certainly could be.
But yeah, I mean, Fast Boat to Sky is supposed to be forward in here. No question about it.
See what happens in race number 6. The 7th race. I think the 7th race that my first love, Getting Back to a Mile, is the horse to beat in this race, and though we both have him second, I think we'll show his race 3 back when he won. I just think the 6.5 furlongs was too short for him. It was a day where the rail was good and he was wide the whole way. Now, the winner was 3 wide as well, and the race kind of fell apart, but he was out in the middle of the racetrack the whole way, which was really not the place to be. His race 2 back was fine behind Tough Street. It was in good form at the time, and I just thought he was very logical getting back to the mile. I picked somebody else, but I don't have a knock on this horse.
No, there's no knock on her. Yeah, getting back to the mile certainly seemed to be what she wants to do. 4 for 8 with a 2nd and 3/3. I mean, it's nearly all of her board performances. She has the rest of her card is 9 starts and 2 seconds for 20,000. 111,000 for 8-4-1-3. The rest of the card. So yeah, I mean, obviously, getting back to the mile is going to help her. I think everybody else is going to see that. She's going to be 8-5, and I just want to take a horse against her. I took the horse that broke the maiden first time out back in June, going the mile.
We'll take a look at the Chasing Daylight.
Yeah, she was good in her debut. Wasn't a very fast race, but she came home in almost 28, but she galloped. And, you know, Bavarian Cream obviously is a different horse now than she was back then, but she's gotten good. So I just took the lightly raced filly, coming off the big win 9 months ago. Almost 10 months ago now at this point.
Well, you say you don't want the 1. You think she's going to be 8-5. She's 2-1 morning line, but this horse is 5-2. So I don't think you're going to get a particularly better price, which is fine. But to not like the 1 at a shortish price, but to take the one that's going to be a similar shortish price.
I just think there's a lot more upside with this filly.
Well, sure, she only ran once, but she has no pedigree. She costs $15,000. She runs once in June. She doesn't show up again for 10 months. Jorge Abreu's numbers, what it's worth, 6 months to 12 months, 180 to 360 day layoffs in the dirt. He's 2 for 14 with a 96-cent ROI. In routes, he's 0 for 4. One of them hit the board, so his numbers off layoffs aren't good. I'm not going to be shocked if this horse wins, but if somebody said to me, which one of the horses that you think will be over bet that you want to bet against, see, I would want to bet against this one, because I think people are going to see the open length win, 1 for 1. He's got all the sexy accoutrements here, and I'm just not sure she's that good. We'll agree to disagree. Will I be shocked she wins? Of course not. Would I have her somewhere in the pick 6? Absolutely, because she can win. But I think from a value standpoint in betting the race, I prefer the 1 at a slightly shorter price. You just disagree. I'm going to take Juliana's Rose on top in this race, however, because she gets back to the Dufresne race, she can win this race. Now, she obviously tailed off after that, no question about it. But Mark Hennig has given her a couple months off. Maybe she kind of went the wrong way, and I'm going to hope she can get back to her best effort, because her best effort is good enough to win this race, and better than the other ones here. She's the 3rd likeliest winner. It's very hard to make strong cases for anybody else.
Yeah. I don't disagree with that either.
I'm going to put her on top in here. We'll see what happens in race number 7. The 8th race is a terrific race. Anaconda is going to be running in the stake on Saturday. The Danger's Hour race, I believe, is going to end up a 4-horse field. She's out. He's out. A couple other horses that probably weren't major contenders in this race. Marvelous Make. And Rinaldi, obviously not bad, but tough spot for him. Mm-hmm. We'll take a look at Nothing Better, who's the horse to beat, winning the Aqueduct, the infamous Aqueduct Turf Championship over Thin White Duke. The horse that you have on top, I have no knock on Nothing Better. He's the speed. We'll see how much speed into the Sunrise shows, but his form's good, and there's no reason to not think he's the horse to beat.
No, put him second. No reason. He's off the he's off the Christmas Eve layoff. Just got beat down by Belgrano, who's turned into a nice horse down at Gulfstream Park.
Not that good, but okay.
He wins his share of races down there, in turf sprints.
Anyway, okay, but you like Thin White Duke to beat him.
Yeah, I mean, I just hope Thin White Duke can. I think I'm hoping Into the Sunrise can put enough pressure on Nothing Better, who is faster, but I'm hoping that there's just enough pressure to, and maybe even Yes and Yes. I know Yes and Yes isn't fast enough, but maybe they put a little pressure on Yes and Yes, and use the entry a little bit to put a little pressure on the favorite. And
Well, you can't run with the favorite, but I mean, yeah. See, I think the problem that I have is I don't believe this entry will be 5-1. I don't agree with David. Talking about a stake-faced horse with Thin White Duke, who's been very good. I think Yes and Yes is an interesting horse. He ran best, actually, in the Belmont Turf Sprint. He had a ridiculous trip that day, and then everything went wrong in the race at Aqueduct. And he's got races that are every bit as good, if not better, than Thin White Dukes. And I'm not knocking Thin White Duke. He got very good last year. But this horse has some very good races. And I would think he would be interesting at a price, but I can't bet him because of the entry, because I got to think they're going to be 7-2, 3-1 in here. I don't think any major horses got scratched taking money. We'll see. It's hard to know for sure they're going to bet this race. I don't have a problem with Thin White Duke. I just hate entries, to be
Yeah, you
honest
do.
with you. And I wish that I could bet. I wish I could bet separately. And one of these days, people in the government will understand that we like to bet the horses we like, and not get saddled with other horses taking money. I think an interesting horse in here that we both have third is Straight Answer. Because even though we'll show him winning a turf race at Fairgrounds last time, he wanted a route, and Brad Cox's numbers turning back in the turf are not particularly good. He's just 2 for 13 at NYRA. He's 8 for 34 overall with a $1.54 ROI. But this horse was sprinting over in Europe, and he was second behind Dr. Zempf. If you're not familiar with Dr. Zempf, he's now a Peter Brand horse that Chad Brown trains that was very impressive, and all you have to do is look at Slipstream's PPs to see him. And he's got a real chance. If Modern Games doesn't run a Modern Games, those Godolphin efforts they seem to run in America, then he's got a real chance to upset in the Maker's Mark tomorrow. I don't know, this horse is, maybe he's more of a sprinter, and I wonder if Brad looks at that and says, I know it's Europe, but maybe he's a horse that'll be better going shorter.
yeah, he started his career 2 for 2 sprinting, and then they threw him into the Grade 1 as a 2-year-old.
Well, Native Trail was one of the best European 2-year-olds that year. This horse ran with some very big races. It's dangerous. I like Slipstream. I have a bit of a thing for Slipstream, I will admit, but this win at Keeneland in the Palisades last year was good. This horse was good as a 2-year-old. His Futurity was an extremely impressive win. This was a race where he made a terrific run to beat Twilight Gleaming. Twilight Gleaming is a sort of a lesser Stone Street Wesley Ward, but did win a stake in his next start, and he's not bad. And they went to Ascot. Well, it ended up being a fool's errand, but you can't knock them for trying. They took a shot, didn't work out. Obviously, things went wrong. I thought his race behind Dr. Zempf was good last time. He's not a miler, and that's a mile race, not 7.5 furlongs. And he got trouble. He was between horses. He really didn't have anywhere to run. I thought he got very, very good education out of that race. He cuts back for his second start, and I'm kind of hopeful that Slipstream could be a good sprinter this year, but he's got to step forward to beat Nothing Better. And listen, and the entry. Thin White Duke, if he's ready off the layoff, he was good last year.
Yeah, he got good last year.
Yeah, I'm not going to knock him. This is a fun race. It's a very, very good race. Anybody else that's worth talking into the Sunrise, probably more in a pace situation. I don't think Comedy Town is impossible in here. No. And of course, Voodoo Zip will be overbet because the West Point people love betting on him.
Yeah, I want to close to the 1, 4, 6, and 9.
See what happens in race number 8. That's today's card. Carryover, $66,700. That'll start in race number 3, and you can play it through NYRA Bets. Head on over to NYRA Bets. If you're not a member, use the promo code BONUS200, and we will match the $200 of your initial deposit. There it is. And we have a pick 6 carryover, $66,705. That's in race number 3 of the 8-race card. Also, Anthony, Acacia, and Maggie for the Derby dinner at King Umberto's. That's Wednesday, May 3rd. Information from Anthony. And finally, last but not least, 1 to 5:30, America's Day at the Races on FS2. Looking forward to today's card. We'll see how things play out. Have a great day. Chris Griffin just getting started. He'll be up next, the reprise, Scratches and Changes.
For almost 150 years, the Saratoga name has been synonymous with the finest quality, sustainably sourced spring water available anywhere. Saratoga carries on the rich tradition of its forefathers by crafting each stunning blue glass bottle with the same attention to detail and care that has been its hallmark for generations. Visit SaratogaSpringwater.com today or ask for us by name at your local market or restaurant. Saratoga Spring Water. Make every day exquisite.